Okay, good afternoon YouTube. Well, I'm back from one of my many work trips, and I did promise you that I would do a notebook covering video at some point. Some of you had asked before about how I do my washi paper notebook covering and the process that I go through. So in this video I'm actually going to show you the process involved. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through the steps of the notebook covering, the way that I glue the paper down and so on. And what I'm going to use for this example is not one of the actual Midori inserts. I just have one here. I'm not using one of the genuine Midori inserts for this particular video, because in one of my previous videos I mentioned the Banditapple company, and the fact that only Kim over at Banditapple was very nice, very kind enough to send me some samples. Now, I did a paper test of these in my last video where I pulled out some of the sheets of paper. We did some ink swabs, we did a couple of different pens, a couple of different inks, so you could see how the paper behaved, including, and the most torturous of all tests, using a Sharpie permanent marker. And the paper performed beautifully. Very smooth paper, very nice to write on, even with the finest of nibs that I have. There was no scratch, there was no drag, no bits of paper fibre. Beautifully, beautifully made paper. So I wanted to try out one of their notebooks for a more long-term test. And the best way to do any kind of long-term test. So I'm actually going to go ahead and use the Midori Traveler notebook, but with one of these Banditapple carnets, one of these Banditapple inserts. So what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to take you through the process that I go when I'm doing the covering. I use a spray adhesive. It's like an aerosol based craft adhesive. A lot of people will use that for mounting pictures onto mounting board, or for gluing down felt and things like that for craft projects. Or you could just use plain old aerosol or spray carpet adhesive, because it's exactly the same stuff that you use for gluing down carpet tiles. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go downstairs into my kitchen where I can lay out lots of newspaper to stop any damage or any mess being made. And we're going to go through the process of covering one of these in the washi paper. So I'll see you shortly. Now, in the last review I asked you to vote on which paper you wanted me to use. There was a couple of samples, a couple of sheets left over from my previous adventures, and the most common requested ones, unfortunately, was not the black, which does happen to be my favourite. It was both the red crane and the blue, the blue cherry blossom. I think a couple of you suggested that the blue one would look very summery. Also the red was nice and vibrant. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go for the blue one. That received the most votes and requests. So that's the one I'm going to go with today. And I'm actually going to take you through the process of how I cover my washi notebook. Now, the process involves using this spray adhesive. It's very similar to carpet adhesive that you'd use to spray onto carpet tiles. Now, I used to use this stuff for spraying on carpet when I was doing audio installations in cars, for scrapbooking, just to mount things onto a backing paper to put into a frame. And I found that this spray adhesive works much better than using a regular glue stick on this paper. I mentioned this in the review before, but when I use a glue stick, the opening and closing of the notebook, as it's worked open and close, the glue stick starts to give way. And there isn't really a way of getting a good solid grab with a glue stick. Also, if you use liquid glue like Copydex or UHU or UHU glue, again you have another problem in that the liquid glues tend to be very wet. It also gets to be a very messy process. So the last couple that I've done, I've been using this spray adhesive. And unfortunately I don't have much left. Now, I really don't want to start a video when I've got only a little bit left in the can, because if I haven't got enough to do the sheet properly, I can't do the sheet properly. Unfortunately, I've not been able to get hold of any more of this, and I don't want to leave this video too much longer. So, you know what? I'm going to kind of risk it. We're going to do whatever we can with what little glue I've got here, and you know what? If it sticks, it sticks. If it doesn't, well, so be it. Now, one of the things I also talked about in the previous review, and let me just open up one of these notebooks. What I talked about in these previous review is that these notebooks, whether it be the Banditapple ones or the Midori Traveler official ones, they are just slightly too small. Now, the lengthwise, you can see, fits perfectly. I've got plenty of overlap to fold over onto the covers. However, height, these are exactly A4 sheets. And this notebook is exactly A4 width, which means I have nothing that I can fold over the bottom and top edge. Now, I've had this problem before when I've been using covering sheets, and what happens is where the paper wraps around, you start to see it comes away at the edges. Again, just because of constant opening, closing, constant opening and closing. The other factor that I find, because I'm spraying adhesive onto the back of this paper, what sometimes happens is that you get little strands of glue along the edge. Now, when you're folding over, that's fine. Your finished edge is on the inside of the cover. However, because this runs directly to the edge of the notebook, this is my finished edge. So any overspray or any little strands of glue that hang off the end are going to be hanging off the end of the notebook. Now, this kind of adhesive, you can use alcohol or turpentine or something, just some kind of solvent-based liquid to remove the overspray and to kind of tidy up the edge. But at the same time, I have no idea as to whether that's going to damage the finish on this paper, to leave marks or stains on the paper of the notebook. So, you know what, I'm kind of making this up as I go today. This isn't ideal. I've not got much in the way of glue. This could go horribly wrong. In either case, it's going to get filmed. So, fingers crossed, toes crossed, but I can't get it in the frame. And that's it. Okay, welcome back. So we have our covered Banditapple insert, notebook insert, and I have my very sharp knife, because what I need to do is to trim off some of this, well, I suppose this overlap on the paper. Now the only way to do this is very, very carefully by eye. You can see that because of the awkward shape and the fact that the notebook is already covered, I'm not going to be able to get a ruler or a straight edge onto there. So I'm going to be doing this purely by hand, purely by eye, and obviously a very, very sharp blade with no safety protection or straight edge to protect your fingers. You must be careful. Okay, that's it. We are done. I've taken off just a tiny bit of the overlap on the paper. You can see there's a kind of very few small shavings there. To be honest, most of you probably wouldn't notice it. Some of you may not care. And in most cases, I wouldn't really worry about something like that. But the reason why I'm taking so much care on this is because this is now my finished edge, not a rolled edge. As I've said before, this is going to be getting caught, this is going to be getting thumbed through, you're going to be catching your thumb on the end of it, and any loose little bits of paper hanging off are going to catch on your finger and they're going to start to pull away. And over the next couple of weeks or months, however long I end up using this particular insert, it's going to start to age very, very quickly, and that's one of the places where it will begin to age. Now, as you can see, well, as I'm hoping you can see, if I flex the cover, there's no wrinkling, there's no buckling, there's no lumps or air pockets in the paper. And that's the reason why I wanted to use, or why I prefer to use this spray adhesive and not a regular glue stick. If I was using a regular glue stick and I bend the paper slightly, you see gaps where the paper hasn't been stuck down properly, you see wrinkles and ridges and things like that. And eventually the paper starts to peel away because it's very rare that that glue stick will be even close to permanent. The last thing we need to do is to put this into my actual notebook. And then we can see what it looks like. So I'm just going to remove my postcards. And as you can see, the way I set up my notebook, I use one of the elastics through the middle of the notebook, but for those of you that have Midoris, you'll already be aware that there's a second one already here, and I have another threaded piece of much thinner elastic running around these two, and that's through my multi-pocket through there, and also around through to the back to attach my business card holder. Oop, little picture there from the little one. So I have this one loop already free, which is the one I'm going to put my new insert through, and we can see how it looks. So that is my new insert. Let's just square this all up so it looks nice and tidy. That's my new Banditapple insert, tucked into my Midori here. We've got my multi-pocket insert, which I just use a little filing option. We have my original Midori Traveler's notebook, which is almost full to the brim of rather interesting adventures. And now we have the brand new, just freshly covered, still slightly sticky on the edges, yes, Banditapple insert, nicely covered with our nice blue summery washi paper. So I hope you've found this interesting, but more importantly, I hope that those of you who are using the standard plain Midori covers, I hope this kind of inspires you to get out there and do something a little bit more, maybe adventurous is one word to use. I think just making it look that little bit more personal or a little bit more interesting adds to the character of what is essentially a very rough and ready, and in my case, rather well battered Midori Traveler's notebook. But you know what? I've had this going on 4 years now. I wouldn't trade it for anything else in the world. I absolutely love this. And if somebody were to buy me a new one today, I'm sticking to my old one. I have character, I have scratches, I have marks and nicks and cuts and scrapes in this. Each one of those will tell a story, and at the end of the day this has travelled with me all through Europe. This has gone through some rather tough personal times with me, and I wouldn't trade this for anything. So I hope you found this video useful. I hope this has inspired you to do something with your own notebooks. Thank you very much for watching, and take care.
Be the smoothest thing.